Today we're going to be lighting a fire and showing you how to fire the Forno Bravo Primavera oven. So now we're going to light the fire and we'll see how quickly we can bring this oven up to temperature. Now that the fire is starting to catch, you can see that the fire is putting out a lot of smoke and hot air. What's important about this design wood oven is the vent area and the chimney. And you can see from this picture all of the smoke being exhausted by the chimney itself. And what that does is it makes the air flow properly through the oven, circulating in the oven through the bottom half of the opening and exiting through the top half of the oven opening and then up through the chimney. And at the same time it makes working with the oven a lot nicer for the chef, keeping smoke out of your face while you're cooking. The second important part of firing an oven is when you look on the inside of the oven, you'll see that there's a lot of black soot. It means in the back of the oven, up in the top of the dome, and in the vent area, right above the landing and attached to the chimney. Now what we're going to find as this oven starts to heat up and as the fire starts making a lot of good progress is that the dome of the oven will start to absorb the heat of the fire, and it's going to start working its way up toward that 650 or 700 degrees or even higher temperature that you're going to want for cooking. And what happens is as the dome of the oven starts reaching those temperatures, the black soot, or the carbon that's inside the oven, actually goes translucent and becomes white. That's a good way of knowing, or clear, that's a good way of knowing that your oven is ready to cook, when the dome of the oven goes white or goes clear. We're going to let the fire burn for a second and we'll come back to this picture and see if we can get a nice photograph of what the white looks like in the top of the dome. In addition to looking at the top of the dome and the sides of the dome walls for going clear, there's another way of telling the temperature of a wood oven, which is to use an infrared thermometer, which is just an easy point and shoot device that will tell you the temperature of the oven at the point that you're aiming at, and we sell those in the Forno Bravo store. So for example, this oven's been going now for about 10-15 minutes, not long, and if I were to use my infrared thermometer I would find that the cooking floor just to the left of where the fire is burning is about 465 degrees. Yeah, it's about 420 out in front. The side of the dome is about 850 degrees. And actually in the very top of the dome, where the fire's been hitting directly, my infrared thermometer, which goes to 932 degrees, registers 750 at that spot, and high at that spot, which means that the dome is already over 932 degrees. So now what we're going to do is just let the fire burn, and the dome of the oven and the floor of the oven will absorb this heat and become saturated with heat, and the temperature of the dome and the floor will regulate, because right now you have some real high temperatures like the 932 degrees plus directly underneath where the fire is hitting, and then the sides of the oven dome are much lower. They're down 600, 620 degrees, and the cooking floor is still in the 450, 460 zone. So another 15-20 minutes of firing, maybe a little bit of a time period where you let the temperature of the oven regulate, and you'll be ready to cook. The next interesting thing I want to point out is that people often ask us whether or not wood ovens put out a lot of smoke. And the answer is no, because they burn so efficiently. So what we have right now is a very good fire going inside the oven. And then we come up the chimney, and what we see out of the chimney that I can see, I don't know if the camera is picking up, is basically hot wavy lines, which is to say that the oven is breathing in cold air through the bottom of the door, combusting that air and circulating it through the oven dome, and then exhausting that hot air, which is fully combusted, through the chimney. So one of the interesting things you can learn about your oven is that if you can see it in your backyard or on your patio or on your deck, from the kitchen, you will know that your oven is firing successfully and heating up thoroughly, because you'll stop seeing the little wisps of smoke that are coming out the chimney, and what you'll see is just the hot wavy lines, which means that the oven is exhausting very, very hot temperatures, and that means that your oven is making good progress. The second thing that I wanted to show you about the oven as it's heating up is this notion of the oven dome going clear. Now, this is going to be hard to show with this camera, but if you look inside the vent area, you'll see black soot. If you look at the back wall of the oven, you'll see an area where there is black soot there, but just the clear gray of the oven refractory dome next to it. So what we are seeing right before us is that the oven dome is in fact going clear at about a half an hour into the firing. So at this point, the oven dome is fully clear, and the walls are becoming clear by the minute. And when the entire dome has gone clear, you will know that it has become hot enough and absorbed enough heat that you are ready to start making pizza. This has gone very nicely. So far we are in definitely less than 40 minutes into our firing. We used the kindling that everyone saw to start the fire at the very beginning, plus these 3 pieces of wood that we added as the kindling started to burn down. And using just that small amount of wood and definitely, 30-35 minutes worth of time, the entire dome of the oven has gone completely clear. The top of the dome, directly under the fire, is well above 900 degrees. The oven walls are now warm, 850 degrees, 850 degrees. So the dome is doing very well. And if we were to check the oven floor, we will see temperatures over, well, about 700 degrees directly under the fire. So, oh yeah, and then some spots next to the fire, even next to where the coals are, even hotter than that. So we're basically ready to start cooking. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move the fire over to one side. We're going to brush the floor down. We'll test it one more time with the infrared thermometer to confirm that the temperatures are all what we want. But we've done it in a real small amount of time with a small amount of wood, very little effort. We've got an oven that's up over the 750 degrees plus that you want for authentic Vera Pizza Napoletana, and we're ready to go. The final step in the process of preparing my oven to make pizza is to move the coals from the center of the oven where they have heated the dome and the cooking floor over to one side, and then to brush the floor down to prepare it for the pizza. So I'm using a rake, a Forno Bravo rake, a nice tool to work with your coals. And I'm going to push everything over to one side. And then I'm going to use a brush, the brush that comes with your oven. And I'm going to sweep all the coals over to the side. And then I'm going to give it just sort of a nice brushing action, which is going to prepare the floor for cooking. Don't use any kind of a damp towel or a rag. The cooking floor is clean at this point, though we always recommend cooking a focaccia, something simple, a simple flatbread with the first pizza of every time you fire the oven. It's a good idea. It lets you know how your oven is behaving. If there's a little bit of grit on the cooking floor, that first pizza will clear everything away. But the good news is that we've got a flame dancing in the dome. The oven floor is ready, the oven dome is ready, and we can start making pizza. The other thing to remember is maybe at this point, you would make your first pizza on the floor in this oven with this fire. I would quickly come back through and add one more piece of wood to keep a nice fire dancing in the oven dome. But other than that, we're ready to go.